Okay. So I'm sitting here outside because what's time is it currently? It is currently 8:23, 8:25 outside, 8 p.m. And I'm just going through one of those moments again. I just did a video earlier talking about the need and the plot of the first film, Rise of the Power, like Rise of Power Rangers Legacy Rise, or Rise of the Power Rangers. I don't know which one name I'm gonna go with just yet, but the point is that I also went down this rabbit hole of how I love to world build and things of that nature, and one aspect of it that I have yet to really discuss of the world of this universe, the Rangers of Earth 223, is Power Ranger Samurai. I've mentioned them in passing, but even amongst that of my original Rangers, like even that amongst my original Rangers, none of them are Samurai Rangers. And it's this thing of like this is weird. My neighbor's kind of looking at me. This is odd. I'm just gonna ignore that. I don't know what to do with that. Yeah, the Rangers of Earth 223, their Samurai Rangers pretty much exist in the same manner that their Rangers were supposed to exist, with everything except everything. No. Actually, I take that back. Thinking about everything, I've never really. So that was weird. I don't know what's going on with my neighbors. They were just kind of staring. I guess it's weird. I mean, I'm standing out here with this strange looking recording device. My friends call it like a one of the traps from Ghostbuster. That's what they think it is. And I'm just gonna get back into it. So the Rangers, the Power Rangers Samurai of Earth 223, they exist very differently than the ones that you know, like SPD, like Mystic Force, like Ninja Storm, like Dino Thunder. Pretty much every Ranger series after Wild Force, things are going to look different in their history. Most of their background history is the same, but anything that happens after 2003, that's all going to look different because of how the timeline goes down. And I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do for Samurai just yet. I knew that I wanted to keep the idea, though, that they were one of the few teams that formed during the actual calamity event of like the early 2000s, like 2001 to 2003. There's this calamity, the Great War as it's referred to, where afterwards you have this instance of there not being any morphing grid abilities for 20 something years now. And Samurai, Ninja Storm, and Samurai and Ninja Storm specifically, they were like Samurai, Ninja Storm, and Jungle Fury. They were the last three teams to ever be formed, and Samurai and Ninja Storm being the last team that was ever formed, period. In the case of Samurai, it was this instance of somebody in the past. I'm kind of making this up on the spot, but a figure in the past, one of the previous Rangers, knew of the involvement or the possibility of these Rangers. I'm pretty sure it's going to be Tommy Oliver, and this is a whole side category. This is a completely different thing. So this is an entire different side category of like, I came across some information talking about the Squadron Rangers. For those of you who don't know, the Squadron Rangers are these Rangers, a team of Rangers that existed, I think, before Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, both chronologically now in history and in the Super Sentai adaptations. And in the 90s, when the Tommy lost his Green Ranger powers and they brought him back as their White Ranger, his suit and his helmet look very different. And that is because he's actually, that White Ranger is the Sixth Ranger from the Squadron series, Super Sentai, not their not Mighty Morphin. So a lot of the things like Toro, I just found out that Tor, the giant turtle mech, and the White Ranger and the White Tiger Zord, all of that came from that Super Sentai series. And it's this thing of Tommy Oliver specifically in Dino Thunder years later in his career. By this point, it's pretty much been said that he was researching dinosaurs, researching morphing grid stuff, and even had a video diary in case of his disappearance that stated of how he became a Power Ranger, how the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers got started, and he had a chronological list of every Ranger that ever existed before him and after him. The only ones that were before him were the original five: Jason, Trini, Zach, Kim, and Billy. Those were the original five, and then he came along. And from there on afterwards, he has everything up to Wild Force and Ninja Storm, and then that was the Dino Thunder team that was watching that legacy video that he left in his video diaries. So the Squadron Rangers are a team that's never been seen before technically in Power Rangers until Boom Comics did some stuff with them later. But in that episode specifically, not that episode specifically, there were some scenes that were shot and people have broken them down and zoomed in on images and seen like, hey, yo, that's the Squadron, what's it called? That's the Squadron logo in the background. What's going on? And it's this thing of, was he aware of the Squadron Rangers in any regard? And did he just not include them for some specific reason, some reason of keeping their identities secret in some shape, form, or fashion? And in the same regard, I like to think that Tommy Oliver would have eventually discovered or known about the Samurai Rangers and the Mystic Force Rangers and things of that nature and the history that they were involved in and how far that history goes back. So point is that during the war, it would have been Tommy Oliver or something along those lines that would have had that information and said, hey, we need extra man. Like, we need more people. Like, I did the count for the Rangers as a whole when you get to Wild Force, and like if they had to pull a all hands on deck, everybody morphin', you got about 35 to 40 Rangers given. And if you're talking about what I'm talking about, which is a global thing all over the world, yeah, that's kind of enough, but at the same time, it's not. So, they would have been looking for other people to help. Enter the Jungle Fury Rangers, enter the Samurai Rangers, Mystic Force. I'm not sure if I wanted the Mystic Force to be Rangers per se, or if I want them to just be wizards and have it be this thing of like, similar to how they explained the Age of Heroes from the Snyder and Justice League did it too, but I'm only gonna bring up Snyder because screw Justice League. 2017, Snyder's Justice League brought up the fact that years ago Darkseid came to Earth and he wanted the mother boxes. He was going to transform Earth and everything, but all the tribes of men put their petty squabbles aside. They teamed up. They went to go gang up on him. The Amazons, before their imprisonment on the island, they came to help. The Atlanteans, before their curse to the sea, they came to help. Even some of the gods even showed up to the war, specifically Ares and Zeus and Artemis. They were there, and they said, like, we even had help from warriors from beyond the stars. And there was this cameo of an ancient green... Hold on. Hold on. Chill. Chill. What? There was this cameo of an ancient Green Lantern being a part of said fight. And it's this thing of like, all right, I think I want the Mystic Force Rangers to be something along those lines. Maybe even the Wild Force as well too. Well, no, Wild Force would have been active around that time. So having the Mystic Force Rangers and maybe one other team be these strangers and warriors of all types and oddities, helping during this war, that it wasn't just Power Rangers fighting, it was all types of people. Like, there's a couple of cyborgs walking around the Power Rangers universe. Mac is a cyborg. There was this RoboCop Ranger from the Turbo series who was kind of like their sixth Ranger. He was shown in Astro as well too. Turns out it seems like the Turbo Zords are sentient, according to at least one episode from Power Rangers in Space. So like, that's a thing. Maybe they evolve into, that could be something. Imagine that. See, I'm going down this rabbit hole of samurai and explaining all of this, and like, imagine that. Imagine the idea of getting to a point where I do a short story maybe about Justin, because Justin is going to show up at some point, and he's rediscovering, what was it called? It was the Red Lightning Zord, and I think it was the blue, I think it was the blue Desert Thunder or something like that. Essentially, and like, imagine if that was like a transformer, or he evolved at some point over time, and he and Red Lightning became like a transformer hybrid character of some sort, where he was sentient and he was able to not just shift into, you know, the pieces needed for the Megazord, but shift into this humanoid robotic creature that had its own will and consciousness, because that was displayed within that one episode of Power Rangers Turbo, that Justin was back on Earth. The blue Thunder Turbo Zord, the blue Jeep, essentially came to come pick him up because the Red Lightning Turbo Zord had been kidnapped and it was being enslaved and being used as like a power source or whatever. So the Rangers came back to Earth to help with that, and on top of that, Justin came out of retirement. He got his morpher back from said blue Jeep, and the six of them just started ganged up on some people, killed a monster real quick, made a Megazord, and went about their day. And Justin said, "Hey, if y'all ever need me, I'll be right here." And that was the last time that we ever heard from Justin. Sensational. Yeah, it's this, that would be such a cool idea. But back to the case in point. Samurai, I want that to be the case. I want somebody to call them into battle, and I probably would need to revamp the timeline some, because by the point in which I'm thinking of, if they, let's say they were in their late teenage years, early 20s, by the time that Power Rangers Samurai happened, which was in 2012. Was that 2012? Power Rangers Samurai. First episode aired in 2012. So yes, it was 2012. In real life, I'm going to canonically say that it was 2012. If it was 2012 when it happened, then that would have been a good, like, let's say 2001. That would have been like 10, 11 years beforehand. I mean, 10, 11 years beforehand, Xandran would have just, ooh, that's perfect. As an extra level of threat, and to add to everything that's going on during the war, because I haven't really fleshed out the war. It's just basically some shit went down and it was worldwide. And that's what caused the Rangers to need all this help and all these Rangers to be called into active duty for that long. And it was a full-scale war. So, and I knew that part of it was going to be that it was going to be threat on top of threat, where it was like, yes, we have a global threat, but on top of said global threat, we also have this matter of like, once we deal with one threat, there's another threat that we got to figure out where he been hiding all this time, and where's Xandrin at, and where's Master Org at, and the demons and the abyss of evil reopen. Lothor's not in there. Where he at? Like that's the level of like constant what's going on in the universe, right? And so now I'm like, okay, Master Xandrin, how old? Now I'm doing a research thing, and I haven't even gotten into what I really wanted to talk about, which was the actual character of the show, because I want to make sure my research is right. Our world building is so fun to me. It's so fun to me, and using this specific universe, this specific fandom is so important to me and so cool to me, and such a like. I'm having so much fun just sitting here creating all this. So let's think about this for a second. It would have been the New Saban era. Samurai would have started. I want to know as to what. Let's see here. Okay. Let's see. Okay. As far as Master Xandrin go, the Nihilak was just a major threat to Earth. And we're dangerous enough that an entire team of superheroes was needed to form in order to combat them. Their goal was to invade Earth and fill it with the Sanzu River. At one point, they were led by Serator, the Nihilak king, who was overthrown by Master Xandrin, although it was implied that they never actually met. Unknown many times, attempted to definitely accomplish. Okay. He definitely managed to accomplish this during the time of Jaden's father. Right, because he had to enter Earth first and then bring the river with him. So... Ranger number what? Number 17? Wait a minute. Before his children, as well as the 17th leader of the Sheba clan. 17 generations? Good God. Mr. Sheba perished. Why would that have to be said in Shattered Grid? It says here that in Shattered Grid that Lauren, Jaden's sister, like said that their father was perished doing the sealing technique on Master Xandrin. It was a partial sealing technique. It wasn't even full. And what is it? He died in that process. We saw that in the show. He got laid out. He was dead. And he didn't show up in the show ever again. I just want to know. It was said it's assumed that all other modern day samurai parents were his teammates, such as Kevin's father. When Master Xandrin in Jaden's challenge, user version of the samurais are available at the time during the Great Duel. Okay, I want to go back up here too and use the tags to find Jaden Sheba. How old was he when this happened? He was friends with Antonio. When Jaden was a boy, he was a samurai ranger, followed his father's advice. At some point during his childhood, he was separated. It's never stated how old he was when it. So the reason I'm trying to figure that out is if I can figure out how old it was the day he and Lauren were separated, that's the same day that Master Xandrin was partially sealed back into the Sanzu River. So if I can figure that out, I can figure out the day Jaden's father passed away, figure out the day they were separated, figure out the day Jaden started his training, and possibly how old. If I just want to know how old he was, how old was he when that happened? Like, how long ago was it, and how old was he when it happened? Because they never really. The show also did a vague job of describing, like, you know, when this was occurring. They never really showed any history of it. They just kind of like did it. You don't even see all the Rangers. Like, you see dead bodies, or collapsed bodies on the ground, but like, the only person that you know of that was a previous Ranger before Jaden, before the team of Samurai Rangers that we know was that was known in the show, rather, was Jaden's father and Kevin's father, who was shown in the first episode. Those are the only two. The rest of them are only brought up in passing, and like very vague passing. Emily speaks about her sister, never about her parents or which one of them was a yellow samurai ranger. It's presumed to be her mother. Same thing for Mia's mother. Kevin never speaks of his parents at all. And Antonio is a first generation ranger unto himself, so there's nothing there. Also, where the heck is their mother? Where's all the other parents? Like, Kevin and them, they had their parents, presumably. Where was Jaden's mother? Like, that's my question. Because G was just raising them on it. Guy was raising them on his own, or rather, raised one of his own. That's probably why he sent Lauren to live in the woods. G was like, listen, man, I'm only raising one of these little kids. I'm only taking one. You pick which one it is. I'll let you do that. You pick which one, the boy or the girl. I don't care. But I'm only raising one. Okay, you don't pay me enough to do otherwise. So I'm gonna guesstimate here that if they were in their early 20s, 20, 21, because like they weren't in school, there was never any sort of a plot that they were in school, and Kevin was getting ready to prep for the Olympics. So I can only assume that they were like 20, 21 at the time, you know? If that's all the case, let's assume that if it was 2012, that 10 years beforehand, when Jaden's father passed away, would have been 2002. Meaning that they would have all been like 10 years old. 10, between the ranges of 8 and 11 years old. Let's just say that much. Now, the reason I'm bringing this all up is I'm trying to figure out, do I make them somewhat of a legacy? Do I push everybody's ages back? Or hear me out, do I do I push everybody's ages back, or do I use the parents as the Samurai Rangers of that team? That would be interesting, because here's the thing. If I was to do that, if I was to take that team, and in 2012 when that happened, they would have been in their 20s, that means that in 2020, they'd be in their 30s, and that's not what I really want to do. I want them, even at that case, having them have kids would be an interesting situation. Luckily, I'm using adoptive kids, so that's gonna help some with that age timeline and whatnot. They could be like they just took in 2 6-year-olds off the street, or whatever the storyline requires, you know. Trying to figure this out. I'm trying to understand this, because that is the one thing I've strayed away from using any series that was too old, because I think, let me look at this really quickly, hold on. So as far as the Power Rangers series that came out in the Disney era, the last series was RPM. The last series before that was Jungle Fury. Power Rangers Jungle Fury, because it won't say it immediately on here. Power Rangers Jungle Fury was in 2008. Yeah, 2008. And then it was Power Rangers, I think it was like 9 or 10 when RPM came out, and then after that it's like a couple years gap, at least 2 by the math, before Power Rangers Samurai ever came out. And then it was back to back, year after year, Power Ranger stuff since. So you have this thing of like RPM, even though it takes place in 2010, those characters would have been wouldn't have been ready to have kids by the time the story starts 13 years later. That would have to be 13 15 years later, because my characters are like 17 18 years old, so you're missing like 2 years, 2-3 years, depending on who you're talking about, if it's like a 15-year gap between their show and that. Here's the thing though, RPM takes place in another universe. I can get rid of that. 2008 to 2025, 23 to 25, I can get away with that. I can get away with that now. So, not to mention Jungle Fury doesn't really have any kids, I don't think. Not yet anyway. If anything, I might adjust it some. I think that's what I'm gonna do. I think for the sake of the story, I think I'm gonna give the same effect to Power Rangers, Power Rangers Mystic Force, Power Rangers, especially since Mystic Force is a really weird era. No one, like, Mystic Force is such a weird place, and no one really knows when Mystic Force takes place. No one really knows where most of these series take place, but you can always assume. So I'm going to go ahead and say that Mystic Force, Power Rangers Samurai, and Power Rangers Jungle Fury, they all take place right around the same time, right around the same time period, probably like 2004-ish, 2003, 2004, and they're all going to actually no, they're not going to take place in 2003, 2004, because that would have been after the war. So that I'm going to put them all in the early 2000s, like 2001, maybe 2002 is when they would have gotten their Ranger powers, and because of the state of the war, that's how they enter into all of this madness as it is, and their stories begin to start, and it retcons a little bit. I haven't gotten there to the point that I know everything, but I'm trying to figure this all out because I came to a problem. The main reason that I'm making this video is to talk about 2 characters, named Renata and Annie. I love these characters. These characters are really dear to my heart. And I want to talk more about them, but I was like, their backstory and how they become Samurai Rangers and the reason their legacies, I'm like, how do I get there? So I had to run through everything and talk about all of the history of the Samurai Rangers and talk about all that history, because I'm like, how do I get to that point where I can then introduce Annie and Renata in a way that makes cohesive sense to my brain. You understand? Because if it don't make sense to me, it can't make sense to y'all. If there's a chance it still may not make sense to y'all, but at least I'll make sense of it, and try to explain it in the best way physically possible in the medium. So I think what it's going to be is that the Rangers existed in the year 2000. And I think it's going to be that it was either between Tommy Oliver or Tommy Oliver probably did the research. He probably had some help from like an Alpha 5 or Alpha 6. Was it 6? It was either Alpha 6 or Alpha 7 that helped him dang, that's a nice car. It was either Alpha 6 or Alpha 7 that helped Adam Park when they needed to fix the morphing grid in Operation Overdrive. So it would probably have been Alpha 5, similar to how Adam Park did it. It probably would have been Alpha 5 who would have access to Zordon's files, and Zordon would have been aware of this event. Because in the 2000s, the early 2000s, like 2001, it would have been Jaden and his team. Jaden, Mike, Kevin, Mia, Emily, and Antonio. Those 6 would have been the Rangers that would have been one of the last teams to formulate. And probably subsequently in response to that, by them activating their abilities, they would have probably called to the sister tribe. And that sister tribe would have been the Ninja Storm Rangers and what was going on with them. Shorty's just going out. Yeah, it would have been the Ninja Storm tribe, and it would have been what was going on with them. So it's like it's this thing of like, that's how they would have come into the storyline and the Great War and got involved in everything, and that's how you do all that. So then by the time that we get to 2000, the 2020s, 2023 and such, when these characters are introduced in their between the ages of like 17 and 19 years old, we're already set. We've got this already covered. That everything that could have happened in Power Rangers Samurai and Power Rangers Ninja Storm, in a manner of speaking, would have already have been happened by this point. And the other thing is that 12 year gap in the 2000s, when that happened with Master Xandran, that would have happened like before everything happened with Rita Repulsa. Zordon would have been aware of it, and maybe even it would have been a thing of like Zordon sending a message or being aware of the Rangers in some extent, maybe sending Gosei. That would be an interesting way to use Gosei. Using him in a manner of like sending Gosei, this humanoid person, to the Power Rangers Samurai and talking to them and being reported by the Zordon like, oh yeah, it's Rangers over there. They cool though. They chilling. They had a problem. They handle their business. Kinda, but like, you know, they got contingencies and all that. Or maybe because of how old Zordon was, he was aware of that team from the get-go. You know, maybe he would have been responsible in some shape, form, or fashion for them accessing the morphing grid, or being aware that there were other people that could access the morphing grid and create Power Rangers just like he did. Because right now, Zordon is personally responsible for having created like 4 sets of Power Ranger teams. In Space, Mighty Morphin, Zeo, and Turbo, in that order, to my knowledge. This is odd. Yo, the heck was that? I'm being mad nosy. Black folks. So this is where we get into the actual point of this video. I want you to imagine the ending of Power Rangers Super Samurai rather, and what happened in that show, right? What happened, if you don't remember, they beat Master Xander, as they always do, and it was this celebratory dinner between the 7 Rangers that existed. Jaden and Lauren, respective Red Rangers in their own right. The red, blue, green, pink, and yellow. Kevin, Mike, Mia, and Emily, respectively. And their new addition, 6th Ranger, the Gold Ranger, Antonio. And it was this thing of, yo, Master Xandrin's gone. Like, unlike generations before us that had never perfected the sealing technique, and since then they had to train the next generation to prepare for Master Xandrin to eventually come back. We don't have to do that anymore. So it's like, what y'all finna do with y'all lives? And Kevin's like, bro, I just ran on my coach. He said if I get back in it real quick, if I hop back in the pool, man, I could make my way to the Olympics. Emily said I'm going back home to take care of my sister. Mike said I'm going with Shorty. You understand what I'm saying? Moving Man Mike, that's what they called him. And dang, oh hold on, that card busted. I'm so nosy. And then you have this thing of like of Mia being like, I'm gonna go back to culinary school and I'm gonna do so well and I'm gonna actually learn to cook, because there's this constant thing in the show of her not knowing how to cook. Like, she could not cook to save her life. The only person that ever liked her cooking in the show was Lauren, who spent most of her youth in the forest training every day, night and day. She don't know good food when it hit her. That's why. And then Antonio said, I'm going on this long cruise. We finna go all over the world. I'm finna be fishing like a crazy madman and all this stuff. What in the world? What in... Oh, that's my phone. I'm like, yo, what in the... Yeah. So that's how the series is going to end, sort of, kind of, where they're like, we're just gonna go live ordinary, regular lives. Fast forward to the future. The two most important things I just said was about where Emily and Mike ended up, and then where Antonio ended up. Antonio ended up on that boat. Bro found love. Hallelujah, praise Jesus. And it's because of that he ends up having a son. We'll come back to him later. I don't know what his name is going to be. I have no idea. I just came up with him. And here's what's so cool. This is both me getting excited about it, but also kind of bragging about it a little bit. Music is so important for me. It's so freaking important. You guys don't even understand. When I created the characters of Renata and Annie was initially going to be a white girl, and now I'm hesitant to make her a white girl. I think I might make her like an attack, like think Gal Gadot type of situation. Gal Gadot white, but Gal Gadot has like a level of melanin in her skin, like that Italian in her, where it's like she's not American white. You understand what I'm saying? I think that's what I want to do. Or I'm gonna go the complete opposite route and make her like Leaky Carver from the 2021 Olympics. 2021, I think it was like 2021 or something like that. 2021 or 2022, and she's gonna be like, what is it? Straight Scandinavian white girl, but like again, not the type of white that you're used to. You understand? And both of these are the adoptive children of Mike and Emily. I might add in a third child for them, like a younger kid who was born probably around the 2012s era and would have been what they would act, what a child of the Power Rangers would have actually looked like in the timeline that we know now. But I think I'm gonna make it this thing of maybe, I don't know. I think if I did that, I wouldn't want to just make it that they didn't have kids just because they didn't have kids. I would want to give it a little bit of tragedy, especially since like, I can understand, not I can understand, but I like, my own family has gone through it where it was like, I understand the idea of like not being able to have kids, or your kids not making it, or like it being very dangerous for you to have kids. So I'm thinking like with what she said about her sister, because her sister was ill, not the sniffles. Her sister was ill, like could not be a Power Ranger if she wanted to ill. That's why Emily was made a Power Ranger, because she was like, my sister physically can't do this. So that's why she's so much younger actually than the rest of the cast, even, because, and she acts as this like innocent sweetheart vibe, because like if the rest of the cast is like 22, Emily is like freshly 18, 19 years old, fresh out the joint. You understand? She was not supposed to be here. Her sister was. And maybe making it a thing where it's like, hey, what if whatever her sister had is a genetic thing and it was passed down, it skipped their mom, or it was a genetic thing that happened later on in life, or something along those lines, where it becomes this thing of like,
every single time.
yeah, it becomes this thing of like, Emily had it too, but it's not bothering her. But in the same regard, it is affecting her ability to carry children. If she was to try to get pregnant, if things were to happen, it would be more dangerous for her, or maybe it's harder for her to have kids. I don't know per se if that what that looks like, or what that is, or if that's the case. I just know that maybe that's something that I explore within the universe itself, that genetically speaking something was passed down, and those specific set of sisters, they have a rare genetic disorder, that one got really sick before she could ever become a Power Ranger, and the other one either got really sick before she could become a Power Ranger, or it made it harder for her to have kids after the fact and whatnot. Emily, it made it hard for her to have kids. Point is that I think there's going to be a third child, but the main two are Renata and Annie, and this relationship and this bond that they have as these adoptive children of Mike and Emily. And as adopted children of Mike and Emily, they have a very interesting background. They are considered to be the new silver and gold Samurai Rangers in a world where the red Samurai Ranger and all them, they don't really exist. Because there's no need for them. But they were trained, they were taught, and in their storyline and their eventuality, they'll end up getting their own gold and silver suits. Well, actually, I wanted to be gold and silver, but I didn't want to reuse that name. because like initially, you know, I was gonna use the name Gold and Silver to do their storyline, but this is where things get. This is where this has all been leading. So this is where this has all been leading. Annie and Renata are the adopted children of Mike and Emily. There's another child they'll probably be about like 12 or something years old, but these girls are in their teenage years. Their storyline revolves around Renata's boyfriend, who is the son of Antonio. Now, you would immediately think that he's a good guy. He's not. He is the most, he is the most like gaslighting character that you could possibly think of, and it creates this toxic relationship with Renata, and it's this thing of this storyline of Renata being the stronger of the two. The first instance of I have two plans in mind for these characters. One storyline is going to revolve around Renata, and it's going to revolve around the factor that for pretty much everyone in her life, she is this strong-willed character. She is a force to be reckoned with, similar to her adoptive father Mike's demeanor and his characteristic. She's very stubborn, she's strong-willed, and she's easy to be around. She has a bold, huge energy and presence about her as a person. But, and she's super protective like her mother, and protective like Emily is. And she's willing to throw the ones with any and everyone, and can hold her own in order to protect the people that she loves in her life. But there's one person in her life that changes all of that. And for the sake of it, we're going to call him Tony, because I can't think of a better name. Tony is the son of Antonio, former Gold Power Ranger, friend of the family, X, Y, and Z. That's how they met. And it's her boyfriend. But they have a very toxic relationship. He's a huge gaslighter. And one way or another, he is the villain. He is the villain of this story. And as the storyline revolves around her having to come from underneath him and find her own footing, and the same energy and mentality that she puts towards other people, that she puts towards standing up for others, she has to now stand up for herself. And when that happens, it's this really, I want it to be this really like big moment. And here's the thing. I didn't know what I wanted to do with these characters. I knew Renata was going to be a strong, powerful, bold character. And I knew Annie was going to be a little silent, a little bit deadly, not aware of what her true strength is. But if she needs to, if she has to put hands on you, she will do it fast, she will do it efficiently, and she will just barely have missed some vital organs, just because of how natural and innate her skill set is. So when it comes to these two characters, there's two individual songs. There's one for Annie, but the one that came to mind, I was in my room just chilling, and I saw a video from a TikToker, and I remembered that when I came up with the concept for Renata, it was based off of two things. It was based off of, well, three things. It was based off of Afro Samurai, and the idea and the imagery and the style of like black samurais with the big, with the dreads or the cornrows or the really big puffy afros that even go as far as to pull the garnet off and cover up the face some and everything. Like that is Renata's like look. That's her whole thing. Then you have one of my old coworkers, Renata. Love that woman. She is like easy 6 foot, beautiful young woman who is just like, her energy and her presence, bold, powerful. She smells like cocoa butter all the time for no good reason. She calls people baby and honey for no reason whatsoever. Like she's an old Southern grandma. Like she is an entire presence and environment unto herself. Love that. I had never experienced that before. Never had I ever experienced that type of a black woman before. And I was like, I'm making you into a Power Ranger character ASAP. And that's what I did. So that's where Renata's character comes from. But that last aspect came, I was scrolling through TikTok. I was scrolling through the TikTok one day and I came across Wee Annie. This girl has the most bold singing presence like ever, like crazy singing presence. Her voice is amazing. If you haven't listened to her music, go listen to it. It's amazing. And I followed her. But then one of her videos came up and it was a clip from her, and it was like when she wasn't singing, she was on a contest. I think it was like America's Got Talent or something like that. And it was like they were hearing her voice and she had this like Huey and Riley from Boondocks voice, and it was like, whoa, that's your real voice? And I'm like, that kind of feels perfect for this character. That and that's what garnered me to her attention. And I'm still working out if I want that to be the case, if I want her voice to be like that entirely, or maybe her younger voice is like that when she was a child, and as she got older, that's when the that deep melodious voice that she sings with, that's when that came out. That sounds almost more like Garnet from Steven Universe. And I want it to be this thing of like, I wanted, if I had to pick anybody to play this character, it would probably be Wee Annie. She would be the person that I would probably pick to play Renata in this universe. So I was like, you're getting saved, you're getting everything. And then later on, I'm scrolling through again. She releases some songs. I'm like, yo. And this song came on called Disgusted. And the lyrics just spoke to me. And the story just started creating itself. Because in my mind, Wee Annie is Renata. And that's who that is. Robert Downey Jr., Iron Man. Not Andrew Garfield. Not Reeves Batman. Robert Pattinson, that's my Batman. That's my Batman. Forget about the rest of them. Chris Evans, that's Steve Rogers, Captain America. He is Steve Rogers. So getting to see Wee Annie in my mind, that's Renata. That's it. That's all. That's who she is. And it's like when that song came on and the lyrics and what she was saying, I'm like, yo, she got her heart broken, but she overcame that heartbreak. She's never gonna let that happen again to her. And on top of that, it's this powerful song and this rise of energy and this rise of comeuppance and this like, she is a new person after she got past this and overcame this trauma and this gaslighting and this toxicity from this relationship. And the song is called Disgusted because like, I'm disgusted with you. I'm disgusted that I had anything to do with you. Like it's such a powerful thing. And I was just like, this is it. This is the storyline. This is the storyline. And then I was like, I came back to this thing. I wanted Renata and Annie to be the gold and silver rangers of this universe. I may still keep Annie as my silver ranger, or maybe make her gold. I don't know yet, but I definitely will keep her as my silver ranger. However, because I have this thing of like, I have this other storyline called Blue and Gold that's supposed to also be innuendos and like a fun nod at the fact of like Booster Gold and Blue Beetle, and I think they even had a series called Blue and Gold. That's what that is in reference to. I don't want to have then another film called Silver and Gold, because it would confuse audiences when those are two completely different Gold Rangers from two completely different series with no idea that each other even exist at the point in time when those films take place. So it's like, what else do I do? Well, what about Silver and Green? Because Annie and Renata are the adopted children of Mike and Emily, it only would make sense that one of them would take up the mantle of a Green Ranger at some point, right? But I'm like, how do I make that more? How do I make that a little bit more? And then it just came to me. What is it? Emerald. Emerald is usually associated with the color green because, if I'm not mistaken, all emeralds are green. I don't know enough about rocks to know if all emeralds are green. I'd have to talk to my rock person about that. The point is that when I came up with that and I thought about everything, I was like, okay, now it needs a new name, because Emerald and Silver, Emerald and Gold, that doesn't really... Emerald and Gold works, but I don't want to use gold, so I'm like, we're back in the same boat. What do I call it? And then it came to me. Bladed Emerald. And then it came to me. Silver is used to make jewelry. Jewelry usually has emeralds in it in some way. These girls are samurais. They are full-blooded samurais. They've been trained to do this since they were about 6 years old, okay? In the case that, Master Xander never, decides to pop his ugly head back up. They're samurais. Jeweled blades, or bladed jewels. Yeah, bladed jewels. That's the name of this project. That's the name of this short film. And bladed jewels, probably part 1 and part 2. And the first part is about Annie and her comeuppance and her learning to stand up for herself the same way that she stands. Not Annie, Renata, and her coming into herself and coming into her power, and her learning to stand up for herself the way she stands up for other people. And for part 2, it's Annie learning to stop doubting herself and to stop holding back and to unleash the full ferocity of her power. And in that moment, she awakens, and you find out that, unlike Renata, there's one less aspect to Renata that I never talked about. Afro Samurai, Renata, my old coworker, Wee Annie, the singer, and then this last aspect, and it's the first ever black samurai. This man is a black man who was just on a boat and somehow ended up in Japan. Ended up in feudal Japan. He was the first ever black samurai. And it's this thing of like, I want Renata to be like, she, similar to how Antonio technically is in the series, she didn't come from some ranger rich legacy. She is a firstborn, and she took up this identity, and in a certain regard, she is the Emerald Samurai Ranger, not the Green Samurai Ranger. In all regard, the Green Samurai Ranger might end up just being her younger sister, Emily and Mike's biological child, or that child might become the next Yellow Ranger. Either way, it's this thing of like, that's who she is. Annie, on the other hand, is a legacy, but they didn't know she was a legacy. They thought she was just like Annie, girl they took in, brought into the samurai ways, and she became a part of this legacy and this family. Hey yo, let me call you back in like 2 minutes. I'm finishing recording something.
Oh, alright, bet.
Alright. Hold on, let me just put you on mute. Never mind. Yikes. Yeah, so it's this thing of like, when she finally comes into that power, there's this moment where she unleashes the power of ice, and it's revealed that she's part of some long long thought gone family.
I slid a short distance, not a long enough distance. Alright, you know what? I like the Desmond experience. Weird.
Just neighbors being neighbors. Yeah, and then it's this thing of like Annie being revealed to have been from this sixth, because there are other houses outside of the 5 main ranger houses that were a part of this family, and at least one of them was responsible for making sure that the Bull Zord, which is one of the most ancient samurai Zords, stays asleep. So in my mind, the same way that same thing applies to some of these other Zords. Here's a little bit of a tangent. The Power Rangers Samurai had 5 original folding Zords. The Dragon Zord, which controls water. The Turtle Zord, that for some reason flies and controls air. Alright, cool. The Bear Zord, that was it was the Ape Zord, that was a controller of Earth. And then the forest, the Bear Zord, that was a controller of like nature and the forest and things of that nature. And then you got your Red Lion Zord, the Blazing Lion, all that, right? Then Antonio came in. He's basically like powered by light and everything. So when other Zords came to be, in the picture, when the Light Zord came to be, it was like, okay, this makes sense why this is his Zord. However, every other Zord outside of that, I'm in complete question. The Shark Zord is my only exception to it, because the Shark Zord seems like that weird artillery thing that's like, it was usable by anybody. Like Mike put it on at one point too. RPM Ranger put it on at one point. I don't know how that works, but what I do know is that there was a Swordfish Zord. Kevin had to go find that, rein that sucker in. He got a new power up. Then there was a Beetle Zord that shot out fire. That was Jaden's first artillery Zord. Then Mike got a hold of it. Weird that Mike has it, but alright, cool. Then there was a Winter Ice White Lion Zord. Where you come from? And I feel like it's like, what if you expound on that and there was this Shiba House of Ice that no one ever talked about? Maybe the house was decimated years ago and the last surviving member of it happened to have a child later on, or this child is the last member of said household, and as such she is the rightful owner of said White Tiger Zord from that series. And I think it would be really interesting. Across my mind, can't get kiss. I think it'd be really interesting. I think it'd be really fun. And it's this thing of like, when she comes into that true power, she becomes this ranger within her own right, where yes, she is of a color of silver, which isn't exactly the same. It really should be a white ranger, but maybe even diamond, maybe diamonds or crystal, to fit in with that aesthetic of like white or whatever. Instead of a silver ranger, I do diamond or crystal. That's up for debate. But if it is still going to be this White Tiger Zord and this Silver Ranger, it would just be that when that happens, because of that, she unlocks this like aspect of her sealing power, and the suit slightly alters where there's like white lining and stuff on it and things of that nature to add to the mix. And that would be the second part of the film. These guys would make reappearances all over. I want them in the war arc. I want them in the two-part tournament that's going on in between movies, and I definitely want them to be a really big part of episode 6. I really want them to be a part of episode 6, as like, you know, either I think I want them to be like the people that come in clutch. Like, you have your 6 main characters and some things have happened to them as this alien army is invading, and as this is going on, it's like, yo, this is going down. But the Samurai Rangers, again, here's what's gonna happen. Because they've been preparing for the possibility of a war since they was 6, niggas was ready. Niggas was ready. Do you understand what I'm saying? They was sitting there, spin sword in hand, samurais are in the other, like, we've been waiting for a reason to use this. Please allow us to bring all of the smoke. Yeah. Ooh, I think I just came up with it. I think I'm gonna do a Silver Ranger who appears in the Fugitive series with the Titanium Ranger, because I definitely want that. And then have her be like a White Ranger of some sort, a White and Emerald Ranger, that are in that series, and it's called Bladed Jewels. That's what it's gonna be called. This is such a cool thing. This is why I love music so much, because it's like, I listened to two songs, and I came up with these concepts. One of them doesn't even have lyrics, and it was 2 songs, and it was this. Is that Suki? That is not Suki. I was about to be in so much trouble. Yo, she kind of bad. I'm not even gonna lie. Hey, yo. No freaking way. No way, bro. No. She's too pale. Yeah. Okay. And it's so cool to me just how my brain works and how music comes together in my head, because it's like, bro, this is dope. This is such a dope. This would be a dope thing by itself. This is an entire subplot to flesh out the universe, so that when these jokers show up, when this dynamic duo of Rangers shows up, it's like, yo, who them? Go watch the Bladed Jewel series. 2-part series. Yeah. And it's like, I just love this. Like, this is such a cool concept in my head, and it can easily be readapted and put into the main continuity if they want to. It's like, you have these 2 kids who they were brought in and adopted by Mike and Emily after everything went down with Master Xandrin, and they were trained as Samurai Rangers because that's how they were raised. That's how Mike and Emily were raised. And later on in life, Renata, who is a very strong, bold, energetic person, she carries a certain energy with her. She's consumes a room almost with her presence. She's a protector who stands up for pretty much everybody in her life. But when it comes to one specific person, she can't stand up for them, and that's herself. And it only happens when she's around her boyfriend, her toxic relationship with her boyfriend, Tony, son of Antonio, who also was trained as a ranger. He was also trained in the ways of the samurai, and they have this toxic relationship. And Antonio gets into some bad stuff and is doing some other things. And Annie and Renata are really the only ones that can stop them. But Renata just can't bring herself to even face Tony. And Annie is this shy, and the film is about Renata coming out of that fear, coming into herself, coming into her own power, and being more bold and being more energetic, and standing up for herself for the first time ever, especially since this man has been so toxic to her for all these years. And Annie, who's been very shy and silent and holds back a lot because she's afraid of what her true potential could be, when the time comes for her, when they're faced with a threat that could kill them all, Renata finally tells her to please stop holding back. She knows she's been keeping it to herself. She knows she's been trying to in fear, keep something locked away. This ain't the time for that. Let it all out. And when she does, she releases this lost symbol power of ice that no one thought was even that G, one of the oldest members of the samurai household at this point. None of them thought this household was even still alive, much less that anyone had that symbol power still. And because of that, she's the first time in years, maybe even a century, they're seeing a white they're seeing a white samurai ranger for the first time in nearly 100 years. So that's the Bladed Jewel series, and that's how this Emerald and White Ranger come into being. And it's this cool concept, and it came from a song. 2 songs to be exact. Your boy just cold like that.